So my name is Leo Faria. I was born and raised in Brazil, worked in technology for a little bit over a decade, and I joined Riot Games back in January 2016, so 6.5 years ago, at our office in Brazil doing esports. I worked in CBLOL for a little while. The last esports project I did was when we brought MSI to Rio back in 2017. Then I was leading publishing for Riot in Brazil for a little while. And then I moved back in esports, but this time in Los Angeles with the global esports team. It was right at the moment when a lot of changes were happening at Riot. We going from being the League of Legends company, having one game, one sport, to launching new games, new sports. And in that process, I was offered the opportunity to work on Wild Rift, to lead that team, build a new sport. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years. We are learning a lot. This is our first endeavor into mobile gaming and mobile esports, even though technically both Legends of Runeterra and TFT were available on mobile before Wild Rift. Wild Rift is our first bespoke mobile game, right, that we built for the mobile audience, developed from scratch to that platform. And it's no different with the sport. So we're learning a lot. I think our big goals for the year were, of course, establishing the competitions, right? So we launched 8 regional leagues around the world. We launched Icons as our global championship property. We established some other third-party programs and competitions, things we're doing with the community. So launching all that was one of the biggest goals, of course. The second one was just building an audience for the sport. We know that's, it's going to take time, but we are putting a lot of effort into establishing channels and making sure active Wild Rift players have, awareness of esports, that they know the competition is happening, who's playing, where they can watch, when they can watch. So you probably saw a lot of the things we did with content series and having a new website where people can find the basic information about the sport, doing for the first time a quite robust in-game integrations with the game itself. So when if you are a player, you open the app and you see icons all over. There's an in-game event, there are in-game arena banners, there's content and emotes and skins. So that's the second goal. And the third one is really just learning how to produce a mobile esports. Everything from how to do proper, build a new observer mode, all the basic foundational features for the sport, things like chrono break and infrastructure, learning the nuances, of course, of the hardware on mobile. So, everything from managing versions of the client, and then how to set up the seating on stage. You probably saw us experimenting with a lot of stuff, but we built a bespoke desk with a soft pad for pros to rest their elbows. The way we did the POV cameras to show their reactions during the game, really learning how to produce a mobile sport. So I think when I look at all these 3 goals, and now that we're close to the end of that first season in Icons, I think we had a good success in all of them. Of course, there are always things we could have done better, but I see lots of wins in all of these 3 buckets that we're really happy about. I think the big ones are probably, we still need to continue growing the audience, right? We have a quite large player base for the game. So creating awareness of esports and, giving players a reason to care about esports and watch esports is a big one. I think that, what we can and want to do better there is we put a lot of effort into that game integration for Icons, but not for the regional competitions itself. And the hard thing is, the way to build something successfully is to create a narrative from the beginning of the season that drives fans into Icons, right? As that big culminating moment capping the season. We did very much nothing in-game during the season, and then a lot for Icons. For next year, I hope it's more like a steady climb where we're exposing players to esports early on, because with a new game and a new sport, establishing that audience is a big challenge. But just looking at, we measure awareness every week for Icons, and just seeing how it went up drastically as the tournament began and the in-game integrations began, it was really cool to see that. that works, right? As obvious as it sounds, if you expose the players to esports, they'll know about it. So growing the audience is definitely something we need to continue to do. And the other thing is, I think, is increasing the competitive parity or decreasing the competitive disparity between China and the rest of the world. I think it's clear to everyone how they are extremely dominant in Wild Rift. So we need to find ways and explore alternatives on how to make competition more competitive and more interesting, right? So yeah, we definitely want to tackle that problem going forward as we build our global sport. We're still collecting data, of course, on viewership. The challenging thing to look at YouTube and Twitch is one, we have icons being broadcasted in a multitude of channels around the world, right? You, of course, have the obvious YouTube and Twitch, but you also have examples are like Africa TV in Korea. You have Nemo, you have Trovo. So we have more viewership that might not be on these channels. We also have lots of viewing parties and co-streamers that might not be accounted for when you look at our official channel. So we're gonna compile up all that and look at viewership together. There's also the obvious thing of most of our viewership comes from China, right? So looking at Icons viewership without looking at China viewership is like looking at Super Bowl viewership without looking at the United States viewership. That's where most of the audience is. So with all that said, we'll have more concrete viewership information. But I think the tactics are very clear, and they are the same ones we apply to all of our sports. Players need to be aware that the sport exists, and that's not entirely true for Wild Rift esports yet. A lot of Wild Rift players don't know that esports is a thing. They don't know competitions are happening. They don't know who's playing, when to watch, where to watch, right? So the basic top of the funnel awareness, we need to do a lot of work to generate awareness. And the second and probably most important thing is giving them a reason to care, right? Why should I watch Wild Rift esports? And we usually see, I apologize, it's gonna be a somewhat long answer, but we usually see 5 reasons why people watch esports, and they are education. I want to watch this sport so I learn from the pros and I'm a better player myself. If you watch enough of it, you identify yourself with a certain team or pro, so that's where you develop fandom. So now I'm a fan of RRQ, I'm a fan of T1, therefore I'm going to watch them. The third thing is just pure entertainment. I like watching the big plays, the Baron steals, the backdoors, the opening ceremonies of the world. The fourth thing is social, right? If that's something I do with my friends, we get together, it becomes a habit. And the fifth thing, which is kind of new for us, is stakes, like having something at stake. So if this team wins or lose, I win or I'll lose something as well. And that can be in the form of rewards. It could be something like pick-ins with predictions. So exploring all of those 5 motivations to give fans something to care about is absolutely, again, how you build interest and how you build viewership. We're putting a lot of energy into features and content for Icon. So if you watch all of our broadcasts, we're always telling stories about the teams and the pros, right? I told the team, we need to get to the end of Icons, and fans should be able to point to a specific team or a few pros that they like and know their names and know why they're special. And the only way you do that is by telling their stories. So again, by creating awareness and exploring these motivators to give players something to care about is how you build audience, and we'll definitely continue to do that. Yes, we are actually developing that plan. We wanted to get through the first season because even though we expected China to be a lot stronger, and we had some insights on that coming out of Horizon Cup last year, we thought we're starting with a blank slate. Let's give regions a chance to compete and see how it goes, right? We had a lot of expectations that maybe Brazil would be an interesting region, and they were. I think they did really well. That Southeast Asia, with a lot of very strong teams, could make the competition quite interesting. So even though I think that was true to some extent, to your point, very clearly China is the stronger region. So now we definitely want to tackle that problem. The challenge is the reason why they are so strong is a complex situation. Like, is the same reason why, if you ask me I'm Brazilian. Why are there so many great Brazilian football players? Why do so many great technology companies come out of the San Francisco Bay Area? And the answer to all of these questions is it's a compound effect, right? Because China is such a large country, they have a huge player base for Wild Rift. Therefore, you have more players who are playing the game every day. You have more tournaments. They are more exposed to competition. That attracts attention of bigger organizations who will build teams and pay them better salaries, and they'll compete more, right? And at the end of the day, you have an entire ecosystem that's just stronger. On top of that, they are probably ahead of the rest of the world in mobile gaming and mobile MOBA specifically for a few years, just because they have been playing that for a longer time. With all that said, there are a few ways to tackle that problem. We're still developing the plans, but I think they probably include one, better talent development for any of our esports, having a more clear path to pro. If you're a regular player, you play Wild Rift, you like it, but you say, hey, maybe I want to go pro. And if you have that aspiration, giving those players a more clear path is a way to get there. And that comes with giving them the opportunity to play and to be seen, right? So for some of our leagues around the world, for example, the LCS on Leo Esports, you have scouting grounds, which is an opportunity for new players to be seen. You have the LCS Academy, a second-tier league. That's one of the ways we could do that. The other way is, which is very much connected, just having a stronger third-party grassroots ecosystem, right? So again, if you're an aspiring pro or an aspiring team, you get to compete in Wild Rift and have that organized play competition. So we are very much, and we should have official announcement soon, putting out a more structured way for third-party competitions and community tournaments to happen, and again, give teams the opportunity to compete. And the third thing that is a more challenging problem to solve, but we want to find opportunities as well, is just giving pro teams more opportunities to play internationally, right? Because then they're exposed to stronger regions. They get not only to play on stage, but they get to scrim and practice against those teams more. It's always challenging because, you can always oversimplify and say, oh, just add a second global tournament. Finding a way to do that in a way that the tournament is interesting to watch and, there's something important at stake is hard, but we definitely want to get all of those learnings from season 1 and apply them as we design season 2. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot I can share right now. And I know fans are, again, eager to know what plans for season 2 looks like. We are super eager to announce, and we're getting close. What I can tell you is we are, of course, now ending the first season with Icons, but there's half of an year ahead of us. So we are going to have competitions this year. We're not on pause for half a year. And again, we're very close to announce what those are. I think for season 2, we're probably going to continue to focus on some of the things we talked about. I think building the audience is a big one, right? The brands are so new. Like, I was talking to some fans online, and we added, for example, the league for each one of the teams on the broadcast. So you would see, for example, Omega, and then below that we would have WBR, noting that this is a team from Brazil, but people don't know yet what WBR or WJC or WOL is. So just continue to build awareness on what the esports ecosystem looks like, each one of the leagues and the pros. That will certainly continue to be a big goal for us. But we also, we definitely will implement some changes for season 2, right? We're not going to be just doing more of the same. I think the only way to grow is by learning what's working, what's not working, and adapt. So I don't have concrete answers yet, but here's one thing I can tell you. For Wild Rift this year, we had one long season, a finals event regionally, and that led into Icons, right? We probably want to do something more. You want to have shorter cycles, right? With more burst competitions instead of having a several months long and a finals. We could probably break into smaller cycles and have more trophy lift opportunities, have more interesting stories. If you're a fan who are engaging with the sport mid-season, it's hard to, you would feel like, oh, I lost half of the season. It's hard to get involved now. So if you have shorter cycles, it's easier to get involved mid-year. So I think that would probably be the big change you are looking to implement into season 2.